When a physical education teacher notices a quiet second grader who never removes his knee pads, even during swimming lessons and in the summer heat, something about his pained movements begins to trigger her professional concern. What began as a casual observation would soon uncover a case of severe medical neglect that had been overlooked by multiple adults across several systems meant to protect vulnerable children. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you believe that sometimes the most important interventions happen when caring professionals trust their instincts, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Alicia Rodriguez had been teaching physical education at Westview Elementary for 7 years. At 34, her energetic approach and genuine commitment to inclusive fitness had made her a favorite among both students and parents in the diverse suburban school district. With her athletic build, warm smile, and tendency to demonstrate rather than just instruct, Coach Rodriguez, as she was known to the nearly 400 children she taught weekly, had created a PE program where even the most reluctant participants eventually found activities they could enjoy. Beyond simply teaching physical skills, Alicia believed deeply in using movement as a window into children's overall well-being, often noticing health concerns that manifested through physical limitations or behavioral changes. Her gymnasium was a well-organized space filled with age-appropriate equipment and visual aids promoting both physical skills and social-emotional concepts like teamwork and perseverance. Unlike the intimidating, competition-focused gym classes many adults remembered from their own childhoods, Alicia had deliberately created an environment that celebrated personal improvement and effort rather than innate athletic ability. The space resonated with the sounds of active children and the occasional whistle that signaled transitions between activities, but never with the discouraging language that might make physical education a source of anxiety for less coordinated students. Alicia lived in a comfortable home about 15 minutes from the school with her wife Carmen, a pediatric nurse whose insights often complemented Alicia's observations about child development and potential health concerns. The couple had moved to the area 8 years earlier when Carmen received a position at the Regional Children's Hospital, and Alicia had quickly found her professional home at Westview. Their shared passion for children's well-being made them particularly effective sounding boards for each other's challenging cases, with Carmen's medical knowledge often helping Alicia understand the physical manifestations of conditions she observed in her students. Principal Diane Washington valued Alicia's contributions to Westview Elementary beyond just physical fitness outcomes. "You've created a PE program that serves the whole child," she had noted during Alicia's most recent evaluation. "You notice patterns in movement and behavior that sometimes reveal issues requiring attention outside the gymnasium." Alicia had accepted the compliment with characteristic humility, though privately she considered such observation an essential element of effective teaching rather than a special talent. School nurse Janet Kim had become one of Alicia's closest colleagues at Westview. They frequently collaborated on supporting students with physical challenges, with Alicia providing insights about movement patterns and Janet offering medical context for accommodations. Their professional partnership worked because both recognized that physical symptoms often reflected deeper issues that required holistic approaches spanning both medical and educational domains. There had been discussions at recent administrative meetings about the increasing strain on local healthcare systems, particularly for families with limited insurance coverage or financial resources. The closure of a nearby pediatric clinic had left many families without regular access to preventive care, resulting in more children coming to school with untreated conditions that eventually became acute. The school had been working to connect families with remaining community resources, though transportation barriers and long waiting lists often complicated these efforts. One Thursday afternoon in late September, Alicia had encountered an unfamiliar man speaking with Principal Washington in the main hallway. The man, who she later learned was Dr. James Bennett, a pediatric orthopedic specialist from the University Hospital in the nearest city, had greeted her with genuine interest when introduced, asking thoughtful questions about how physical education teachers might help identify early signs of musculoskeletal issues in children. "We're trying to develop better early intervention models," Dr. Bennett had explained. "So many conditions are missed until they've progressed significantly, especially in communities with limited access to specialized care. Physical education teachers see children move in ways that often reveal developing problems before they become severe." This perspective aligned perfectly with Alicia's own philosophy about the diagnostic value of movement observation, and she'd left the brief interaction feeling cautiously optimistic about potential partnerships that might benefit students with unaddressed physical needs. Early autumn had settled over the suburban community of Westview, bringing pleasant temperatures and golden afternoons that allowed Alicia to conduct many classes on the school's expansive playing fields rather than in the gymnasium. The elementary school, a well-maintained two-story building constructed in the early 1990s, served approximately 400 students from diverse socio-economic backgrounds. Inside and outside, spaces hummed with the energy of a new academic year now fully underway after the adjustment period of the first few weeks. It was during this season of settling in that Alicia first began to really notice something unusual about Ethan Marshall, a 7-year-old second grader who had transferred to Westview just after the start of the school year. The boy was small for his age, with serious hazel eyes that seemed to constantly assess his environment for threats, and dark brown hair cut in a simple style that required minimal maintenance. His file noted that he lived with his father, a long-haul truck driver frequently away for extended periods, and his paternal grandmother who served as his primary caregiver during these absences. No significant health concerns had been flagged during enrollment, though Alicia observed he had been marked provisional for the required school physical examination, with a note indicating the family had been given a 6-week extension to complete this requirement. But nothing could prepare Alicia for the mystery that would unfold around Ethan's knee pads. The first time Alicia really took notice was during a basic movement assessment she conducted with all students early in the school year. While other children wore the standard PE uniform of t-shirts and athletic shorts, Ethan participated in long sweatpants despite the warm September weather. More unusually, he wore bulky knee pads, the type typically used for skateboarding or aggressive inline skating, visible beneath his pant legs. When running, jumping, or performing other basic movements, he displayed a distinctive gait and limited range of motion that suggested discomfort beyond normal childhood awkwardness. "Ethan," Alicia had asked after class, "are your knee pads comfortable for PE? Sometimes it's easier to move without them unless we're doing specific activities that need extra protection." The boy's reaction was subtle but notable, a slight tensing of his shoulders, eyes darting briefly to the exit before focusing on the floor. "I have to wear them," he replied quietly. "Doctor's orders." Something about his response, the practice quality and lack of additional explanation, triggered Alicia's professional concern. In her experience, children with genuine medical requirements for supportive equipment typically had documentation from healthcare providers and were usually quite forthcoming about their conditions, often providing more detail than requested. "That's fine," she had assured him. "I just wanted to make sure you were comfortable. If you have doctor's instructions, could you have your dad or grandma send a note so I can make sure our activities are appropriate for you?" Ethan had nodded quickly before hurrying to join his classmates leaving the gymnasium, his gait showing that distinctive limitation in knee flexion that Alicia's trained I couldn't help but notice. Over the following weeks, the pattern continued unbroken. Ethan wore the knee pads during every PE class, regardless of the activity. Even during swimming lessons at the community pool, where the bulky pads became waterlogged and clearly impeded his movement in the water, he refused to remove them, claiming he wasn't allowed to take them off. Most concerning to Alicia were the occasional winces of pain she observed when particular movements stretched his knee joints beyond their limited range, suggesting that whatever condition necessitated the knee pads might actually be exacerbated by wearing them constantly. When no medical documentation arrived despite several reminders sent home, Alicia decided to consult with Janet Kim about her observations. "I'm concerned about Ethan Marshall in second grade," she explained during their weekly check-in meeting. "He wears knee pads continuously, even during swimming, and shows signs of discomfort and limited mobility. He claims it's doctor's orders, but we've received no documentation despite multiple requests." Janet reviewed Ethan's health records on her computer. "His file is quite sparse. The family hasn't completed the required physical exam yet. They're still within the extension period, but it's unusual not to have any medical history at all. No immunization records have been transferred from his previous school either, which is technically a compliance issue we'll need to address soon." Has anyone had direct contact with the family about these requirements? Alicia asked. I've left 3 voicemail messages for the grandmother, with no response, Janet replied. The father is apparently on a cross-country route and difficult to reach. The emergency contact form lists only the grandmother. This pattern of limited family engagement combined with Ethan's physical symptoms heightened Alicia's concern significantly. In her experience, when families consistently avoided school communication about health matters, it sometimes indicated problems ranging from lack of health insurance to more concerning situations of medical neglect. I think we need to take a more direct approach, Alicia suggested. His movement patterns suggest he might actually be experiencing pain from wearing those knee pads constantly. Without medical documentation, we can't determine if they're helping or potentially causing harm. Janet nodded thoughtfully. I could schedule him for a general health screening. We're doing vision and hearing checks for his grade next week anyway. That would give me an opportunity to assess the situation more directly. The following Tuesday, Janet conducted routine screenings for Ethan's class. When his turn came, she expanded the basic checks to include a general physical assessment, explaining to Ethan that she needed to check how his body was growing and moving. When she asked about the knee pads, his response mirrored what he had told Alicia, that a doctor had ordered them and he wasn't allowed to remove them. Which doctor told you to wear them? Janet asked casually, noting his responses in his health record. Ethan hesitated before answering. The doctor in our old town. I don't remember his name. And why did the doctor say you needed knee pads? Janet continued gently. For protection, Ethan replied vaguely. Because of my condition. When Janet asked what condition that was, Ethan seemed at a loss, finally saying, Grandma just says I have to wear them so I don't get hurt worse. This lack of specific information, combined with Ethan's obvious discomfort discussing the topic, intensified Janet's medical concerns. After consulting with Principal Washington, she decided to contact the grandmother directly through a home visit rather than continuing unsuccessful phone attempts. As the school nurse, Janet occasionally conducted such visits for urgent health-related matters, particularly when communication barriers existed. The home visit the following afternoon yielded limited additional information. Ethan's grandmother, Mrs. Marshall, appeared overwhelmed and defensive, insisting that Ethan had weak knees that required constant protection. When Janet gently asked for medical documentation or the name of the diagnosing physician, Mrs. Marshall claimed that their medical records had been lost during their move and that Ethan's father handled all medical matters. She promised to have him call when he returned from his current route, supposedly in about 2 weeks. Something doesn't add up, Janet told Alicia after reporting on the visit. The grandmother seemed genuinely concerned about Ethan getting hurt, but couldn't articulate any specific diagnosis or treatment plan. There was no evidence of any medication, therapy instructions, or other materials you'd expect for a chronic condition requiring constant supportive equipment. Their shared concerns led to a meeting with Principal Washington, the school counselor, and Ethan's classroom teacher to discuss a coordinated approach. Each had noticed concerning patterns: Ethan's frequent absences on days requiring physical activity, his social isolation from peers, occasional statements suggesting his grandmother's fear that he was breakable, and most recently, his reluctance to change clothes for PE, insisting on arriving and leaving school in the same sweatpants and knee pads. I'm increasingly worried this might be a case of medical neglect or even factitious disorder imposed on another, Janet suggested cautiously, referring to a condition where a caregiver fabricates or induces illness in someone under their care. Without evaluating what's under those knee pads, we can't determine if there's an actual medical need or if wearing them constantly might actually be causing harm. The team developed a careful plan to assess the situation more thoroughly. As mandated reporters, they had an obligation to investigate potential neglect, but wanted to approach the situation with appropriate sensitivity. Principal Washington would schedule a formal meeting with the family to discuss Ethan's physical education accommodations, with both Alicia and Janet present. During this meeting, they would request direct examination of Ethan's knees to determine appropriate activity modifications. But nothing could have prepared Alicia for what she would discover 2 days later, when an unexpected situation accelerated their timeline dramatically. The revelation came during an ordinary PE class focused on basic gymnastic skills. Students were practicing forward rolls on thick mats, an activity that Ethan had been hesitant to try but finally attempted after Alicia's encouragement. His technique was awkward due to limited knee flexibility, and on his second attempt, he rolled incorrectly, causing his sweatpants to tear along the seam. "I'm sorry," he exclaimed immediately, seeming disproportionately distressed about the minor clothing damage. "It's okay, Ethan," Alicia assured him, kneeling beside him on the mat. "Accidents happen. Let me check if we have any safety pins or extra sweatpants in the office." As Ethan shifted position, Alicia noticed that the tear had exposed part of his knee between the sweatpants and the knee pad. What she glimpsed caused her to pause mid-sentence, her professional concern immediately escalating to alarm. The visible skin showed what appeared to be severe irritation, redness, and potentially infection around the edges of the knee pad. "Ethan," she said carefully, keeping her voice calm despite her growing concern, "it looks like your knee might be hurt under the pad. I need to check if you're okay. Can you come with me to Nurse Kim's office?" The boy appeared torn between his instinct to refuse and his obvious physical discomfort. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded reluctantly. Alicia asked her PE assistant to supervise the class and walked with Ethan to the nurse's office, noting his increasingly labored gait. Once there, Janet's medical training took over. She gently explained to Ethan that she needed to examine his knees to make sure they weren't injured from his fall. Though clearly anxious, the boy seemed too tired to maintain his usual resistance. "They hurt a lot," he admitted quietly. "All the time, but especially today." With careful movements, Janet helped Ethan remove his torn sweatpants, revealing the full knee pads that extended from mid-thigh to mid-calf. What happened next would remain etched in both educators' memories for years to come. As Janet slowly loosened the first knee pad, the distinctive odor of infection became immediately apparent. When the pad was fully removed, both women struggled to maintain their professional composure. Ethan's knee was severely inflamed, with obvious signs of long-term pressure injury. The skin was broken in multiple places, showing signs of serious infection with purulent drainage. The pattern of injury matched precisely the edges and straps of the knee pad, indicating it had been worn continuously for an extended period without removal for hygiene or skin checks. Even more alarming was the unnatural appearance of the knee itself, swollen significantly and positioned at an angle suggesting possible untreated injury to the joint. When Janet carefully examined the other knee, she found a similar pattern of pressure wounds, though slightly less severe. "Ethan," Janet asked gently, "how long have you been wearing these knee pads without taking them off?" The boy's answer was heartbreaking in its simplicity. "Since I fell down the stairs at our old house. Grandma says I broke my knees and we can't afford the hospital, so I have to wear the pads until they heal on their own." This statement, revealing both a potentially serious untreated orthopedic injury and clear medical neglect, prompted immediate action. Janet documented the injuries with photographs while Alicia contacted Principal Washington. Within minutes, a decision was made to activate emergency protocols, including calling 911 for medical transport and contacting Child Protective Services to report suspected medical neglect. As they waited for emergency responders, Janet performed basic wound cleaning while Alicia sat beside Ethan, providing reassurance and distraction through casual conversation. The boy's demeanor shifted between relief at having his painful secret finally discovered and anxiety about potential consequences. "Is Grandma going to be mad?" he asked Alicia, his voice small with worry. "Your grandmother cares about you," Alicia replied carefully, "but sometimes adults need help understanding the best ways to take care of injuries. The doctors will help your knees feel better, and other helpers will make sure your family has what they need to keep you healthy." When paramedics arrived and assessed Ethan's condition, their concerned expressions confirmed the seriousness of the situation. They noted potential signs of untreated fractures and significant infection requiring immediate hospital intervention. As they prepared Ethan for transport, Principal Washington contacted his grandmother, who arrived at the school just as the ambulance was preparing to depart. Mrs. Marshall's reaction provided additional insights into the complex situation. Rather than anger or defensive behavior, She displayed obvious relief mixed with shame. "I did what I thought was best," she explained tearfully to the principal. His father said we couldn't afford hospital bills, that they'd take Ethan away if we couldn't pay. The knee pads were supposed to help the bones heal straight. This perspective, revealing both serious misconceptions about medical care and potential financial barriers, suggested that ignorance rather than malice might underlie the neglect. Nevertheless, the severity of Ethan's condition necessitated full investigation by child welfare authorities alongside immediate medical intervention. Alicia was permitted to accompany Ethan in the ambulance, providing continuity and support during the potentially frightening experience. At the hospital, emergency physicians confirmed their worst fears. Ethan had indeed suffered bilateral tibial plateau fractures approximately 2 months earlier that had gone untreated except for the improvised immobilization with skateboarding knee pads. The constant pressure from the ill-fitting devices had caused severe pressure wounds, now seriously infected. Additionally, the immobilization in an inappropriate position threatened long-term growth and function implications if not addressed promptly. This will require a comprehensive intervention, the emergency physician explained to the child welfare representative who had arrived at the hospital. Orthopedic surgery to properly realign the fractures, aggressive treatment for the infections, and likely extended rehabilitation. Without intervention, he could have developed life-threatening sepsis from the infections or permanent disability from the untreated fractures. For Alicia, the hours at the hospital were emotionally exhausting yet affirming of her professional instincts. She had noticed what others had missed, persisted when faced with resistance, and potentially saved Ethan from outcomes that could have affected him for life. When Carmen arrived for her nursing shift at the children's hospital and discovered her wife sitting with a student in the emergency department, their personal and professional worlds intersected in an unexpected but meaningful way. "You did everything right?" Carmen assured her after being briefed on the situation. "You noticed the movement patterns that suggested something was wrong, you documented your concerns, and you acted decisively when the opportunity arose. That's exactly what these children need from the adults in their lives." The investigation revealed a situation more complex than simple neglect. Ethan's father, often absent for weeks on long-haul trucking routes, had indeed instructed his mother never to seek medical care due to their lack of insurance and fear of financial ruin. The grandmother, with limited education and her own untreated health issues, had genuinely believed she was helping Ethan by following her son's instructions to keep the knees immobile until they healed. Neither had understood the serious consequences of untreated fractures or the dangers of improvised medical interventions. Child Protective Services conducted a thorough assessment and determined that while serious medical neglect had occurred, it stemmed from a combination of healthcare access barriers, inadequate information, and poor decision-making rather than deliberate harm. Rather than removing Ethan permanently from his family, they developed a comprehensive intervention plan that addressed the underlying issues while ensuring his immediate safety during recovery. Ethan remained hospitalized for nearly 3 weeks, undergoing surgery to properly realign his fractures and receiving intensive treatment for the infections. During this time, both his father and grandmother participated in required education about proper medical care and the resources available for uninsured or underinsured families. His father applied for and received emergency Medicaid coverage that would address Ethan's immediate medical needs, while social workers connected the family with longer-term healthcare access programs. Most significantly, the case triggered a coordinated response from multiple community systems. The Regional Children's Hospital, recognizing that Ethan's situation reflected systemic issues affecting many families, expanded their outreach program to include educational sessions about recognizing serious injuries and accessing emergency care regardless of insurance status. The school district enhanced their health screening protocols, particularly for transfer students who might enter the system with unaddressed medical needs. For Alicia, the case reinforced her belief in the vital role physical educators played in children's overall well-being. She collaborated with Dr. Bennett, the orthopedic specialist she had met briefly before discovering Ethan's condition, to develop a training program for PE teachers focused on recognizing movement patterns that might indicate undiagnosed orthopedic issues. This program would eventually be implemented across the district, potentially helping other children receive intervention before their conditions became as severe as Ethan's. By winter, approximately 3 months after Alicia had first noticed his unusual gait, Ethan returned to school on a modified schedule that accommodated his ongoing physical therapy. The transformation was remarkable, both physically and emotionally. With proper medical treatment, his knees were healing well, though he would need continued monitoring throughout his growth years. More striking was his emotional shift from withdrawn and anxious to cautiously engaged and expressive. "Coach Rodriguez," he called out during his first day back, proudly showing her how he could now bend his knees nearly to a normal range. "Look what I can do now." This simple moment, a child excited about basic movement that had previously been impossible, crystallized for Alicia why her observation skills mattered so deeply. Behind Ethan stood his grandmother, herself transformed by the experience. She had become an active participant in his recovery, diligently following medical advice and transporting him to all therapy appointments. The intervention, while initially frightening for the family, had ultimately connected them with resources they hadn't known existed and corrected dangerous misconceptions about healthcare access. The most profound outcomes extended beyond Ethan's individual situation. His case had highlighted critical gaps in how schools identified and addressed potential medical neglect, particularly when caused by healthcare access barriers rather than deliberate harm. The district implemented new protocols for following up on missing medical records and physical examination requirements, recognizing these administrative issues might signal more serious concerns. Dr. Bennett used Ethan's case, with appropriate privacy protections, to secure grant funding for a mobile clinic that would visit rural and underserved schools, providing basic orthopedic assessments for children who might otherwise lack access to specialized care. The first school selected for this program was Westview Elementary, creating a full-circle moment that connected Alicia's initial observation to systemic change. By spring, approximately 6 months after the day Alicia had seen what lay beneath Ethan's knee pads, the impact of that discovery continued to ripple outward in unexpected ways. Ethan, now engaged in regular physical therapy and properly supported medical care, had progressed far beyond initial expectations. Though he would likely always have some limitations from the extended period without treatment, his prognosis for near-normal function had improved dramatically. During a special assembly focusing on community helpers, Ethan surprised Alicia by volunteering to speak briefly about how teachers, doctors, and social workers had helped his family. With remarkable poise for a 7-year-old, he explained, "Coach Rodriguez saw that I was hurt when I didn't even want anyone to know. She didn't get mad that I kept it secret. She just got me help. Now I can run and play again, and my grandma knows how to find doctors even when we don't have a lot of money." This simple testimony, highlighting both the intervention and the systemic support that followed, moved many in the audience to tears, including Alicia herself. It represented the ideal outcome of mandated reporting, not punitive action against families struggling with limited resources, but connecting them with appropriate support while ensuring children's safety and well-being. The grandmother's transformation was equally remarkable. From fearful avoidance of medical systems, she had become an advocate for other families facing similar barriers, voluntarily sharing her experience at community health fairs and parent meetings. "I thought I was protecting my grandson by following my son's instructions," she often explained. "I didn't understand that there are programs to help families like ours, or how dangerous it was to try handling serious injuries ourselves." 1 year after Alicia had first noticed Ethan's unusual movement patterns and knee pads, she received a special certificate of recognition from the Children's Hospital Foundation. The accompanying letter explained that her observation and intervention had not only saved one child from potential permanent disability, but had catalyzed programs that would benefit countless others facing similar barriers to care. The following September, as Alicia welcomed students for a new school year, she carried with her deeper awareness of how physical movement could reveal hidden health concerns. When a new third grader displayed an unusual gait pattern, Alicia noticed immediately, not with alarm or assumption of neglect, but with the appropriate professional attention such observations warranted in light of her experience with Ethan. Recovery hadn't been instant for Ethan or the systems that had failed him. His physical healing would continue for years, with periodic surgeries to address growth-related complications from his untreated injuries. The healthcare access barriers that had contributed to his situation remained challenging for many families, though new programs had created more safety nets. The progress, while incomplete, represented meaningful steps toward better protection for vulnerable children. The story that had begun with a PE teacher's concern about a student's knee pads had transformed into something unexpected, not just an intervention that helped one boy, but a catalyst for community-wide changes that would benefit many children. As Alicia guided her students through warm-up exercises, she remained ever mindful that physical education offered unique opportunities to observe children's well-being beyond just fitness measures, sometimes revealing crucial needs that might otherwise remain hidden beneath knee pads or other coverings. Not an ending, but a new beginning for Ethan, for his more informed family, and for a community now better equipped to address healthcare access barriers before they led to dangerous situations. A reminder that healing becomes possible when caring professionals pay attention to the small details that speak volumes, and when systems respond not just with protection but with support for families facing complex challenges. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the story, give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more. When a veteran school nurse notices a kindergartner wearing the same grimy bandage on his arm for nearly 3 weeks, her professional concern transforms into mounting dread. What begins as routine medical monitoring soon reveals a devastating reality that multiple adults have overlooked or ignored. Her decision to finally intervene might be seen as overstepping boundaries, but the horrifying secret hidden beneath that filthy bandage could cost far more than just one childhood if she walks away and does nothing. Before we dive into the story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you believe everyday heroes in schools can change lives forever, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that matter. Patricia Alvarez had been the school nurse at Lincoln Elementary for 16 years. At 53, with salt and pepper hair always neatly secured in a practical bun and reading glasses hanging on a beaded chain around her neck, she'd cared for thousands of children. Bandaging scraped knees, monitoring medication schedules, conducting vision screenings, and occasionally providing a quiet refuge for students who just needed a moment of peace during chaotic days. The small health office, with its vinyl cot, basic first aid supplies, and walls decorated with colorful health posters, had become her second home. Lincoln Elementary served a diverse community on the outskirts of a mid-sized Midwestern city. Some families were comfortably middle class, others struggled with financial instability, and a significant number of students lived in the Pine Hollow apartment complex, subsidized housing that had seen better days but provided affordable options for low-income families. Patricia had learned to navigate the complex socio-economic dynamics with sensitivity, recognizing that health concerns often intersected with financial limitations and cultural differences. It was during routine vision screenings in early October that Patricia first noticed 5-year-old Lucas Reyes and the bandage on his right forearm. The kindergartner stood patiently in line with his classmates, waiting his turn to read the eye chart. Unlike the boisterous children around him, Lucas remained unusually quiet, his dark eyes watchful beneath a mop of black hair that needed cutting. He was small for his age, dressed in clean but ill-fitting clothes that suggested hand-me-downs or thrift store finds. "Hello there," Patricia greeted him warmly when his turn arrived.
"I'm Nurse Alvarez."
"Can you tell me your name?" "Lucas," he replied softly, eyes downcast. "Nice to meet you, Lucas. We're going to check how well you can see today. Have you ever done an eye test before?" The boy shook his head, the movement causing his too long sleeve to slide up, revealing a bandage wrapped around his forearm. Patricia noticed immediately that the adhesive had discolored, the edges fraying and dirty, clearly not a fresh dressing. "That's quite a bandage you have there," she commented casually. "Would you like me to take a look at it after your eye test? I'm very good at fixing bandages." Lucas quickly pulled his sleeve down, shaking his head vigorously. "No, thank you. It's fine." Something in his rapid refusal triggered Patricia's professional instincts. After 16 years, she could distinguish between a child's normal resistance to medical attention and genuine fear of having an injury examined. Lucas's reaction fell decidedly into the latter category. She proceeded with the vision screening, noting that Lucas performed well, no apparent visual impairments to report. As he prepared to leave, Patricia made one more attempt. That bandage looks like it might need changing. Does it hurt? No, Lucas answered too quickly. My uncle fixed it. Special. I'm not supposed to take it off. Is your uncle a doctor? Patricia asked, keeping her tone conversational. No, but he knows how to fix things. With that cryptic response, Lucas hurried back to join his classmates, leaving Patricia with a nagging sense of unease. Later that day, Patricia approached Lucas's kindergarten teacher, Ms. Bennett, a young woman in her second year of teaching who brought enthusiasm but was still developing the experienced eye that came with years in education. How's Lucas Reyes adjusting to kindergarten? Patricia asked casually during lunch duty. Ms. Bennett sighed. He's very quiet, academically on track, follows rules, but doesn't interact much with other children. I've tried encouraging him to participate more, but he seems most comfortable keeping to himself. Have you noticed the bandage on his arm? Any playground injuries I should know about? The teacher frowned thoughtfully. He had it on the first day of school 3 weeks ago. I assumed it was a summer injury healing up. Should I be concerned? Probably nothing, Patricia replied, not wanting to alarm a new teacher unnecessarily. But the bandage definitely needs changing. I'll check on it when I do the hearing screenings next week. Patricia made a note in Lucas's health file and added him to her watch list, students who warranted extra attention for various reasons. The bandage itself might be nothing concerning. Children sometimes developed attachments to bandages, seeing them as badges of courage or special accessories. But combined with Lucas's guarded behavior and the mention of an uncle fixing him, the situation warranted monitoring. The following week brought a steady stream of fall sniffles, a case of head lice to manage, and medication schedules to coordinate. Patricia conducted hearing screenings for first and third grades but didn't see Lucas, as the kindergarten assessments were scheduled for the following week. When she did spot him in the cafeteria or hallway, she noted the same bandage still in place, looking increasingly soiled. During the kindergarten hearing screenings, Patricia observed Lucas more carefully. The bandage remained firmly in place, now with a layer of grime that suggested it hadn't been changed in at least 2 weeks. Moreover, she noticed Lucas wincing when he accidentally bumped his arm against a desk, suggesting the injury beneath was still painful. Unusual for something that should have been healing for several weeks. Lucas, I think we should take a look at your arm today, Patricia said gently after completing his hearing test. That bandage needs changing. Panic flashed across the boy's face. No, I can't. Uncle Marco said not to show anyone. It's not ready. Not ready for what, sweetie? To be seen. He's fixing me. The child's voice dropped to a whisper. If I'm good and keep it covered, I can stay. If not, he didn't complete the sentence, but the fear in his eyes spoke volumes. Patricia's concern deepened significantly. Lucas, do you live with your uncle? The boy nodded. Uncle Marco and Aunt Delia. Since the fire. This was new information. Patricia checked Lucas's emergency contact form and confirmed that his legal guardians were indeed Marco and Delia Reyes, with a Pine Hollow address. The form listed parents deceased under family information, a significant detail that hadn't been communicated to the health office during enrollment. Can you tell me a little about your arm? How did it get hurt? Lucas's expression became guarded again. I was bad. Uncle Marco fixed it. I'm better now. His rehearsed response chilled Patricia to the core. But nothing could prepare Patricia for how deep the reality went, or how her simple observations would uncover a situation that others had overlooked for weeks. At the 19-day mark since Patricia first noticed the bandage, the situation came to a head. Lucas arrived at school on a Monday morning in obvious distress. Ms. Bennett sent him to the health office after noticing he was holding his arm carefully and had begun to develop a low-grade fever. When Lucas entered her office, Patricia immediately noticed the change in his demeanor. The quiet, watchful child had been replaced by someone in obvious pain. His normally olive complexion pale and clammy, dark eyes glassy with fever. Lucas. Ms. Bennett says your arm is hurting today, Patricia said gently. helping him onto the examination cot. The boy nodded miserably, too uncomfortable to maintain his usual guardedness. "It's hot and it hurts. I think we really need to look at it now," Patricia said firmly but kindly. "The bandage has been on much too long, and I'm worried there might be an infection underneath." To her surprise, Lucas didn't protest this time, suggesting he'd reached a point where the pain outweighed his fear of disobeying his uncle's instructions. Carefully, Patricia gathered her supplies: scissors designed for bandage removal, antiseptic, fresh gauze, and gloves. As she worked, she continued talking softly to Lucas, explaining each step to minimize his anxiety. "I'm going to cut the bandage very carefully so it doesn't pull your skin. It might smell bad because it's been on a long time, but that's okay. We'll clean everything properly." As the scissors sliced through the outer layer of bandage, Patricia noted an unmistakable odor, the distinctive smell of infection. Her concern mounting, she continued methodically, years of experience helping her maintain a calm exterior despite her growing alarm. When the final layer of bandage pulled away, Patricia froze, horror flooding through her at the sight beneath. Lucas's small forearm revealed not a simple cut or childhood injury but an untreated burn, severe, infected, and showing signs of something deeply disturbing. The burn pattern was distinctive, linear stripes consistent with contact from a heated metal grate or grill. More alarming were the signs of previous similar injuries, older scarring visible around the edges of the current wound, suggesting this wasn't the first such punishment. The current burn showed classic signs of advanced infection: angry red streaks extending up the arm indicating developing sepsis, yellow-green purulence, and skin hot to the touch. This wasn't just neglect. This was a medical emergency requiring immediate intervention. Patricia maintained her professional composure despite the shock and rage surging through her. "Lucas, I need to clean this right away, and then we need to have a doctor look at it. This is a very serious infection." "Am I going to die?" the boy whispered, tears filling his eyes. "No, sweetheart. We're going to get you help right away. But I need to ask you, how did this happen to your arm?" Lucas's lower lip trembled. "I spilled Uncle Marco's special drink. He said I needed to learn a lesson about being careful. He used the grill thing from the stove." His matter-of-fact description of such deliberate cruelty was perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of the revelation. Patricia made an immediate decision. This situation required emergency medical attention and mandatory reporting to Child Protective Services. Using the office phone, she called 911 while gathering Lucas's emergency contact information and health forms. "This is Patricia Alvarez, school nurse at Lincoln Elementary. I have a 5-year-old student with a severe, infected burn that appears deliberately inflicted. The injury has been bandaged and untreated for approximately 3 weeks and is showing signs of advancing sepsis." Within minutes, the school's crisis response protocol activated. The principal was notified, the school counselor arrived to provide support, and the front office prepared for emergency responders. Throughout this flurry of activity, Patricia remained with Lucas, applying cool, sterile saline compresses to the wound while monitoring his increasing fever and reassuring him that he was safe and would receive proper care. When the paramedics arrived, Patricia provided a detailed report, including her observations over the past weeks and Lucas's disclosure about how the injury occurred. As Lucas was being prepared for transport to the children's hospital, Patricia made one more promise to the frightened child. "I'm going to check on you at the hospital after school, Lucas. The doctors there are going to make your arm feel much better." The boy's response broke her heart. "Will I have to go back to Uncle Marco's after?"
No, sweetheart.
"You're going to be somewhere safe now." The following hours brought a whirlwind of activity. Police officers and Child Protective Services arrived at the school to gather information and coordinate with hospital social workers. Patricia provided detailed documentation from Lucas's health file, along with her observations since first noticing the bandage. The school counselor worked with Lucas's teacher to prepare an age-appropriate explanation for his classmates about his absence, while the principal contacted the district's crisis team to ensure proper protocols were followed. After completing her school duties, Patricia drove directly to Children's Memorial Hospital. As both a medical professional and the reporting party, she was permitted to visit Lucas, who had been admitted to the pediatric ward after emergency treatment for the infected burn. She found him resting in a hospital bed, his small arm properly bandaged, for antibiotics flowing through a line in his other arm. Despite the serious medical situation, Lucas appeared more peaceful than she had ever seen him, the constant vigilance temporarily eased by medication, proper care, and removal from immediate danger. "Hi there," she said softly, not wanting to startle him. "Nurse Alvarez from school. I came to check on you like I promised." Lucas's tired eyes brightened slightly at the familiar face. "The doctors fixed my arm for real," he said. "They didn't get mad or anything. That's what doctors and nurses are supposed to do. Help people feel better without getting mad," Patricia replied, her heart aching at the implication that this concept seemed foreign to him. A hospital social worker joined them briefly, updating Patricia on Lucas's status. The infection had been severe enough to require aggressive antibiotic treatment and debridement of the wound, but with proper care, they expected full recovery with minimal scarring. More concerning were the multiple healed and partially healed injuries discovered during his examination, evidence of ongoing physical abuse that had somehow gone undetected despite Lucas being enrolled in school for nearly 2 months. "We've been unable to reach the aunt and uncle," the social worker explained quietly. "The police went to the address listed but found the apartment vacant. Neighbors reported the couple moved out suddenly yesterday, leaving few traces. We're trying to determine if there are any other family members who might be appropriate placements once Lucas is medically cleared." The timing was suspicious, Lucas finally receiving medical attention and his guardians disappearing on the same day. Patricia wondered what might have triggered their sudden departure. Had Lucas said something? Had they somehow realized the bandage ruse wouldn't work much longer? Whatever the cause, their disappearance simplified at least one aspect of the situation. Lucas wouldn't be returning to their care. The next 3 days brought developments both troubling and hopeful. Police investigation revealed that Marco and Delia Reyes had falsified guardianship documents. They weren't Lucas's aunt and uncle at all, but distant acquaintances of his parents, who had indeed perished in an apartment fire the previous year. The couple had apparently taken Lucas from the temporary foster placement he'd been assigned after the tragedy, using fraudulent papers to claim guardianship and access survivor benefits meant for the child. Further investigation uncovered a pattern of similar fraud across 3 states, with Marco Reyes currently wanted for outstanding warrants related to identity theft. The uncle had a history of violent offenses as well, explaining the deliberate injuries inflicted on Lucas as both punishment and a method of ensuring the boy's silence through fear. On a more positive note, the hospital's child life specialists reported that Lucas was responding well to treatment. Once the infection was controlled and his pain properly managed, glimpses of a normal 5-year-old began to emerge, curious about the hospital equipment, interested in the playroom's offerings, and gradually becoming more verbally expressive with staff he trusted. Patricia visited daily, bringing small items from the school, a class card signed by his kindergarten classmates, art projects saved by his teacher, and a stuffed lion from the school counselor's collection of comfort objects. These tangible connections to a normal childhood environment seemed to reassure Lucas that he hadn't been forgotten and would eventually return to the school where someone had finally noticed his silent suffering. During her Friday visit, Patricia met Dr. Eleanor Chan, the pediatrician overseeing Lucas's care. "Medically, he's making excellent progress," Dr. Chan explained. "The infection is responding to antibiotics, the burn is healing nicely, and his overall health is improving with proper nutrition and rest. Psychologically, we're seeing positive signs too. He's gradually becoming more trusting with certain staff members, including yourself. Any word on placement once he's discharged?" Patricia asked. "That's actually why I wanted to speak with you," Dr. Chen replied. "Social Services has located his maternal grandmother in Colorado. She had been searching for him since shortly after his parents' deaths but lost track after the Reyes couple took him across state lines. She's flying in tomorrow and seems like an appropriate placement option." Lucas remembers her positively from visits before his parents died. The news brought a wave of relief. Finding appropriate placements for children in the system could be challenging, But a grandmother who had been actively searching for her missing grandchild represented the best possible outcome from a difficult situation. The following day, Patricia arrived at the hospital to find Lucas sitting up in bed, animatedly describing his kindergarten classroom to an elegant older woman with silver-streaked black hair and the same warm brown eyes as her grandson. The transformation in the boy was remarkable. The guarded, almost silent child now gesturing enthusiastically as he explained the reading corner and class pet to his attentive grandmother. "Nurse Alvarez," Lucas called when he spotted her, his voice carrying a note of excitement she'd never heard before. "This is my abuela Elena. She came on an airplane to see me." Patricia introduced herself to Elena Diaz, immediately warmed by the genuine affection evident in the older woman's interactions with Lucas. As Lucas became distracted with a puzzle brought by a hospital volunteer, Elena drew Patricia aside, tears shimmering in her eyes. "The social worker told me you were the one who discovered what was happening," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "For 10 months I've been searching, following false leads, fighting with bureaucracy that seemed not to care that a small boy had simply vanished. How can I ever thank you for saving my grandson?" "I just wish I had realized sooner," Patricia admitted. "The signs were there from the beginning of the school year." "But you did notice," Elena insisted. "When others overlooked or rationalized, you kept paying attention. Some never notice at all." Over the next week, as Lucas continued recovering and bonding with his grandmother, a plan took shape for his future. Elena, a retired elementary school administrator, had ample resources and a stable home in Colorado. The court expedited the guardianship process given the circumstances, and social services in both states coordinated to ensure a smooth transition once Lucas was medically cleared for travel. Patricia worked with Lincoln Elementary to arrange for Lucas's school records to be transferred to his new district and to gather materials that would help him maintain a sense of connection to the brief positive experiences he'd had in kindergarten. The school counselor provided recommendations for trauma-informed therapy options in his grandmother's area, and Ms. Bennett created a special memory book from his time in her classroom. 2 weeks after the bandage removal that revealed so much more than a simple injury, Lucas was discharged from the hospital into his grandmother's care. Before leaving for Colorado, they visited Lincoln Elementary so Lucas could say goodbye to his teacher and classmates. Patricia watched from the health office doorway as the boy, now standing straighter, smiling more readily, and speaking with growing confidence, received hugs and well wishes from children who had barely known the silent version of him. "Will you have a different nurse at your new school?" one classmate asked. "Probably," Lucas replied. "But Abuela says I can write letters to Nurse Alvarez if I want to." "You absolutely can," Patricia confirmed, kneeling to Lucas's level for a proper goodbye. "And I expect to hear all about your new school and the mountains and everything." Lucas surprised her with a quick but fierce hug. "Thank you for fixing my arm for real," he whispered. As Patricia watched Lucas leave hand in hand with his grandmother, she reflected on the extraordinary sequence of events set in motion by her decision to question a dirty bandage that others had overlooked. In her 16 years as a school nurse, she had encountered many concerning situations, but Lucas's case would remain with her as a powerful reminder that persistence in the face of subtle warning signs could literally save lives. 6 months later, a large envelope arrived at Lincoln Elementary addressed to Nurse Alvarez. Inside, Patricia found a collection of colorful drawings and a letter written in the careful print of a kindergartner with occasional help from an adult hand. "Dear Nurse Alvarez, I am writing to you from Colorado. My school is called Mountain View Elementary. I am learning to ski and I have made 3 friends. My arm is all better now. The doctor says it will always have a little scar, but that's okay because it reminds me that I got better star. Abuela helps me when I have bad dreams. I go to special playtime with Dr. Melissa where I talk about my feelings. I don't have to say sorry all the time anymore star. I drew a picture of the mountains for you. Also me and Abuela and our new dog Rusty. He was rescued 2 star. Your friend, Lucas Diaz. I have Abuela's name now." Included with the letter were several photographs. Lucas standing proudly on child-sized skis against a backdrop of mountains, beaming beside an equally delighted Elena as they held a certificate of formal adoption, and laughing as a golden retriever licked his face. In each image, Lucas appeared transformed, healthier, happier, and unburdened by the fear that had defined him during those weeks with the mysterious bandage. Patricia pinned the pictures to her bulletin board, where they joined other reminders of children whose lives had intersected with hers over the years. That afternoon, as she updated immunization records and applied ice packs to minor bumps, she found herself studying each child who entered her office with renewed attention, wondering what unspoken stories might be hidden beneath ordinary-seeming complaints or seemingly small concerning details. 1 year after Lucas left Lincoln Elementary, Patricia received an invitation to attend a special event in Colorado. Elena Diaz had established a foundation in her grandson's name, focused on training school personnel to recognize signs of child abuse and neglect. The inaugural conference would feature experts in trauma-informed care, mandatory reporting best practices, and cross-system collaboration to protect vulnerable children. With the principal's enthusiastic support, Patricia arranged to attend, bringing Lincoln Elementary's counselor and psychologist as part of a team approach to improving their school's response systems. The conference center was filled with educators, medical professionals, and child welfare specialists from across the country, all committed to better serving children like Lucas. When Elena introduced her grandson to open the conference, Patricia barely recognized the confident 6-year-old who walked onto the stage. Gone was all trace of the frightened, silent child with the dirty bandage. In his place stood a thriving first grader who spoke clearly into the microphone. "Thank you all for coming to learn how to help kids like me. Sometimes kids can't tell you when bad things are happening, so grown-ups have to notice and ask questions." The simplicity and power of his message brought tears to Patricia's eyes. After Lucas finished his brief welcome and rejoined his grandmother in the audience, the keynote speaker, a renowned child psychologist, underscored the critical importance of what she called noticing the bandages in children's lives. In Lucas's case, it was a literal bandage that concealed physical abuse, she explained. But there are metaphorical bandages as well: behaviors, unexplained absences, sudden changes in demeanor, inconsistent explanations for injuries. Our responsibility as adults who work with children is to look beyond these coverings to identify the wounds that need healing. During a break, Lucas spotted Patricia and raced over, throwing his arms around her in an enthusiastic hug that contrasted sharply with the hesitant child she had known. "Nurse Alvarez, Abuela said you might come, but I wasn't sure." "I wouldn't have missed it," Patricia assured him, taking in how much he had grown, how the haunted look had disappeared from his eyes. "You were very brave speaking in front of all these people." "It wasn't too scary," Lucas said with the resilience children often demonstrate when properly supported. "Dr. Melissa helped me practice, and Abuela says my story can help other kids, so it's important to share it." Elena joined them, wrapping an arm around her grandson's shoulders. "Lucas is thriving in every way," she told Patricia. "His therapist says his progress has been remarkable. He's on grade level academically, making friends, adjusting beautifully to his new name and home. There are still moments, of course, certain triggers that bring back memories, but overall we couldn't ask for better healing. We're even considering expanding our family," Elena added with a smile. "Lucas has been asking for a sibling, and I'm exploring foster care certification, perhaps with the possibility of adopting another child who needs a second chance." As the conference proceeded, Patricia found herself reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had unfolded from her simple decision to question a dirty bandage. Lucas had gone from a victim of severe abuse to a thriving child with a loving home and bright future. His grandmother had transformed profound grief over her daughter's death and grandson's disappearance into purposeful advocacy. And Patricia herself had gained renewed commitment to her role as a frontline observer of children's well-being. On the final evening of the conference, a special recognition dinner honored individuals whose actions had directly saved children from dangerous situations. To Patricia's surprise, she found herself called to the stage to receive an award for her role in Lucas's rescue. "Sometimes heroism isn't dramatic," the presenter noted. "Sometimes it's simply the persistence to keep asking questions when something doesn't seem right." Nurse Alvarez demonstrated this quiet brand of heroism when she refused to ignore the warning signs she observed in a kindergartner with a suspicious bandage. As Patricia accepted the award, a beautiful crystal sculpture engraved with the words, "For seeing what others missed," she spotted Lucas in the audience, sitting between Elena and a friendly-looking therapy dog wearing a service vest. The boy gave her an enthusiastic thumbs up, his smile radiant with the security of knowing he was surrounded by adults who would notice, question, and protect. In her brief acceptance remarks, Patricia spoke directly to the assembled professionals. "I didn't do anything extraordinary," she said simply. "I just kept paying attention when something seemed wrong, even when there were easier explanations available. That's all any of us can do. Keep looking beneath the bandages, keep asking the difficult questions, and keep believing children when they show us, even without words, that something isn't right." When Patricia returned to Lincoln Elementary, she brought not just the award but a renewed sense of purpose. Working with the principal and district administrators, she helped implement new protocols for tracking concerning observations, coordinating responses between different school personnel, and ensuring that subtle warning signs weren't dismissed or overlooked. The story of the boy with the bandage became a powerful teaching tool during staff training sessions, emphasizing that what might seem like minor concerns could actually be critical indicators of hidden crises. 2 years after Lucas left Lincoln Elementary, Patricia received a holiday card from Colorado. The photograph showed Lucas, now 7, standing proudly beside Elena and a younger child, a little girl of about 4 with dark curls and a shy smile. The accompanying note explained that Maria had joined their family first as a foster child and recently through formal adoption. "Lucas is an incredible big brother," Elena wrote. "His capacity for empathy and kindness, despite everything he experienced, continues to amaze me." As Patricia pinned the card to her bulletin board, she reflected on how a single moment of professional attention, the decision to question a dirty bandage that others had ignored, had cascaded into transformative change for not just one child but now 2. Every day in her health office, children arrived with visible and invisible wounds, some physical, others emotional. The privilege and responsibility of her position lay in creating a space where both kinds could begin to heal. The following September, as a new school year began and children once again filled the halls of Lincoln Elementary, Patricia welcomed them with experienced eyes that missed little and a commitment to see beneath whatever bandages they might wear. A promise silently renewed each day, inspired by a brave little boy who had taught her the life-changing power of simply paying attention. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the story, give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more.